Welcome to the club, ladies. The one that no one wants to join, the Divorce Club. I have some good news for you. There is a path to find hope, healing, and happiness, no matter what your circumstances are. I'm Jen Zingmark, a Christian life coach, and I can help you find joy in your journey. So let's go. Hi, y'all. Today's podcast is the first in a series of success stories after divorce. In this episode, my special guest shares her path to find her husband and the joys of being happily remarried. Hi, welcome to Joy in the Journey with Jen. Today, I am interviewing a beautiful friend of mine who is going to share her remarriage success story. Today, I am bringing you Rebecca Cottle, and she will share her story of getting divorced and how she met her husband and is happily remarried and some things that she learned along the way. So, welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, sure. I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit about your experience and, your journey. And so let's start by, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm originally from South Carolina, but I'm currently living in Maryland. And I've been married to my wonderful husband, Ben, for about 6 years. And we have 2 girls, a 5-year-old and 3-year-old, and a brand new puppy. So life is a little crazy, but such in a beautiful way, crazy in a beautiful way. So yeah, I'm a stay-at-home mom right now. So I'm just enjoying just being with these girls, just enjoying life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy for you. How awesome. Sure. Okay. Well, tell us just a little bit about your past, your history, about your first marriage and how it ended and, what happened.
Yeah, sure. So it's really kind of a storybook romance, I guess, if you will. We were high school sweethearts. He was my best friend. We had known each other for years and years, and I got married, and I thought everything was awesome. Just we had a great marriage. So I thought I was putting him through school and working and just enjoying those early married years. And then the night before he was scheduled to graduate from physical therapy school, he told me that he had not been in physical therapy school for the last number of years. And from that night going on, I realized more and more lies and deceit that he had been actually covering up for the previous 4 years. He had never been in physical therapy school, had never even graduated with his undergrad degree, and just more and more lies and deceit over those. I had no idea really what he had been doing for those 4 years. I discovered he had had addictions to pornography, gambling, a host of other issues that came out, and just really as one just in disbelief that this could be happening to me, who thought I had this great marriage. But I kind of woke up with all these shattered pieces of my life, not knowing what to do. Where do I go next?
Wow.
We tried counseling and trying to work through, obviously, the addictions that he was dealing with. He unfortunately did not want to change. And as I began to realize that he was still continuing to lie and to do those deceitful things, we got separated and ultimately divorced. And that was it was a dark place. It was a dark time. As a divorce is for anyone. Like I said, it was I felt like my life was just shattered in all these empty pieces, all these pieces. I'm just looking at the floor, that used to be my life. I didn't even know how to identify myself anymore as a divorced woman. And so there I was. It's just
wow. I can definitely relate to that. And I know so many women can. When the reality comes to the surface and the truth of what's been happening that you weren't aware of for so long, it's such a shock. And it's so, like you said, you have to figure out who you are at that point because your marriage is ending and you realize I'm going to get a divorce, and what now? And I agree with you. It's a tough time, but you persevered, and so did I. And thankfully,
You can do, I
you can
survive
do it.
it.
That's what we do. We persevere.
Yes.
Okay, so someone who's been through divorce might feel jaded about getting into another relationship. When realized you were getting a divorce and were newly divorced, did you think you would remarry? And what were some of the thoughts about remarrying that you had to work through?
Absolutely. I wanted to get remarried. I wanted a family, and that had been my lifelong goal, was to be married and have kids. But I was very leery to get back into dating, having a lot of trust issues, because I thought I knew that person so well. We were married for 6 years, and I thought I knew him, and we had grown up together. And so getting back into the dating world was so scary, but I knew I had to do it. It took me a long time. Like, my divorce was final for over a year before I even went on my first date. So it wasn't something that I wanted to rush into and felt like I needed to rush into. For me personally, I needed more time to kind of find myself and kind of figure out who I was before I put myself back out there, and to feel more confident that I could learn to trust again. It was a long process, and a process to learn to forgive too. I think that was a whole process. And once I could really forgive and let go of that, that's when I feel like I could move on. And it took me years to work through all that before I felt like
Oh,
I could get
that's
back
so
into a
good.
new relationship.
That's so good. I think that's so important. I counsel many women about that, taking that time. And for some people, it's a year. For some people, it can be more, many more. But I
Sure.
think it's
Yeah.
so important to take that time and heal and just be with yourself, figure out who you are again, and then move forward. So good for
Right.
you. Good for you.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, from the time that you first started, like after you worked through that process and then you first got out into the dating world until the time that you met your husband, kind of explain a little bit about that process and what happened in that time. How were you different when you first started dating after your divorce than when you met your
Well, I
husband?
Sure, sure. Well, it's so interesting. My husband and I, now we talk about all the things that we went through to get us to the point where we were able to meet each other and, open up and fall in love. And we both went through things. We both had trust issues. We both went through things, but we both agree that we would not have been able to be compatible had we not been through what we both went through, because it changed us. It changed us in all kinds of ways, right? But it helped us to it opened our hearts up to looking outside of kind of the mold that maybe we had set in our younger years.
Mhm.
And so I don't think that Ben and I would have really been compatible had we not gone through what we went through. And God works all those things for our good, right? And
Yes. Yes.
I remember so many times when I was going through my divorce and then starting to date, I felt really, you just kind of feel hopeless,
Mhm.
because you're just walking along and you're like, is this ever going to happen? And and I remember my mom telling me, well, Rebecca, you're never going to meet somebody sitting on your couch at home. And I was like, well, that's true. Like, you got to put yourself back out there, because I didn't
So
want to at
true.
first, but you have to, you have to, like, just kind of start out there. And the other thing that helped me is something my grandma told me, and she said, the happiest years are still ahead of you. And I
Aw.
like clung to that. I really did because I needed that hope that, because those were dark days. There was a
Yeah.
lot of days where you just feel like it's never going to be different. I'm still going to be here at the same job. I'm still going to be single. I'm still going to be, there were so
Mhm.
many times where you just feel like nothing is ever going to be different. But I clung to that my happiest days were still ahead of me. And that's so
Aw.
true. And now looking back years later, I absolutely believe that. But you have to hold on to that hope, and you have to put yourself out there and just keep at it and keep at it. I mean, I dated different guys, after my
Mhm.
eyes were wide open. I asked a lot, there was a lot more questions, and a lot more open communication than I ever had dating when I was younger. I was much more straightforward
Mhm.
and just like asking questions like, have you done this? Do you do that? Just very much like no nonsense. I was tired of playing games. It was kind of like when you're young, you're playing,
Mhm.
in the dating, it's a little different. But the next time around, and it was just very, more what you're looking for, I think, having gone through something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you shared about having hope that your best days are ahead. I think that is so important. It's true. We have to have a vision of the life that we want to have after we're divorced so that we can work towards it. We can create it. And that vision gives you hope. And I love that you did that. That's awesome. That
Yeah.
is
It
great
gets you through
insight.
those hardest, yeah, it gets you through those hardest days. I think if you can just say, you know what, it's not always going to be like this. It will be different. We just have to keep moving forward. And it might just be a day at a time, but you're like, okay, let me just get through this day. But you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And eventually, you find yourself moving forward again.
That's awesome. Okay, you mentioned that you were different dating the second time around. You were much more serious minded and focused on finding out, answers to questions that you had. Did you have
Yeah.
any other relationships before you met your husband? And did those help you? Like, what were those like? What did you learn from them?
I did. I did. I dated a few different guys before I met Ben. Nothing too serious, but I realized pretty early on that wasn't what I wanted, and so where I was able to say, okay, I recognize that's not what I want, and move forward. And one relationship in particular, he was very wishy-washy. And I realized like that's not what I need. I need a
Okay.
guy that is gonna pursue me like nobody.
I love it.
Yeah, so I could recognize more just easier what I was looking for. And when I didn't find it, I was like, I'm not gonna settle. Like I am gonna keep going until I find what I'm looking for. And when I met Ben, he he just pursued. Like he knew that I had, as we started getting to know each other, he knew that I had trust issues. And when he said he was going to do something, he did it. And I knew I could count on him. It was a long distance relationship. And he was busy, was working full time, going to school full time. So he was very busy, but he called me every single night. Like when he said he was going to do something, he did it. He followed through. And even if
Oh,
it was just to say, hey, I'm so busy, I'm on my way to whatever, how was your day? Even if it was a 2-minute conversation, but it was that, like, I knew that he was serious. It was a
yeah.
totally different feel when I met him than it was with the previous relationships.
Oh, that's so good. That's awesome. I love that you set your standards and you were willing to wait until you found the right person who was going to respond in the way you needed. He followed through on
Mhm.
commitments and you moved on when someone didn't. And you were like, I'm not wasting my time here.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
love
Yeah.
it. That's awesome. Okay, well, tell us your love story. How did you meet Ben and how did you decide to marry him?
Yes. So So, like I said, living in South Carolina, there weren't a whole lot of opportunities. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of had already gone through all of the any eligible men, had so I knew I needed to branch out a little bit. And so a friend of mine lived in the DC area at the time, and she emailed me about a mid-singles conference that they were hosting
Awesome.
in Washington, DC. And at first I was like, ooh, I do not want to go to a mid-singles conference. Scary, right?
Yes.
You're like, ah. But I was like, you know what? Like, I need to branch out. I need to put myself out there, and I'm going to do it. And thankfully, I convinced my sister, who was also single at the time. She was living in Texas. We both flew in to DC and
Ah.
went together. So at least I didn't have to do it by myself.
Hmm.
But yes, so we just went to this mid singles conference, and there were hundreds. There was like 500 mid singles
Wow.
at this conference. It was incredible, and it was just, and that alone gave me so much hope, Jen. It was
Yeah.
like to see like that they were good, like good Christian people, that just
Yes.
they wanted to have a good time, but they wanted to do it in the right way and loved God, and it just gave me so much hope. And
That's
so
awesome.
as the conference went on, I talked to different people and that kind of thing, but it wasn't until Friday night they had a big gala at the French embassy, and
Oh.
it was so fun. Yeah, so fun to get all dressed up, and they had dinner and all
Yes.
that. And so Ben came up to me because it was at the French embassy, and the French ambassador was going to speak to us. They had heightened security, and so some people were able to bring cell phones in, but I had left mine in the car, and Ben had left his in the car. He wanted to get my phone number, but we didn't even have a pen. It was like, you don't have your cell phone, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'd love to get your phone number. And anyways, he went up to some guy he didn't even know, got his phone, and had me text to Ben to himself my phone number.
I love it.
So I was like, oh,
Oh.
okay, this guy, like
He's resourceful.
he's
Yeah.
resourceful.
Uh-huh.
He's gonna get it. If he wants something, he's gonna do it. Anyways,
Yeah.
so he texted me that Monday morning. He texted me and was like, "Hey, how long are you in DC for?" Because Ben was from Maryland. He knew I was from South Carolina, and I told him, "Oh, I'm flying back. Today. I have to fly back. When are you coming back to DC? Like already? Like very like?" And I was like, "Oh, I have no idea." But anyways, then we started texting. We started talking. Like I said, every night he called, and it was, some conversations were a couple hours, where we could really get to know each other. And that's
Hmm.
what I loved. Long distance is a horrible way to do things. But for us, honestly, it actually worked out because he was so busy with
Hmm.
school and work. And he had said that a lot of times and he started to date, and then he didn't ask somebody back out for a month. They were like, this guy's not interested, but he just really didn't have the time. But
Hmm.
for me, it was fine because a phone call was enough. And then we saw each other like once a month. Like I would fly up to see him. He came to South Carolina to see me. And it was very natural. Like when I saw him the next time at the airport, he picked me up, and like walking, like when I saw him walking towards me, like my heart just like did this pitter patter. And he just, you're nervous
Oh.
and you're just like, what's going to happen? He just came up and grabbed me in this big hug. And like I was
Oh.
just like, wow, like it was amazing, because
Oh.
then I knew like God is working this all out.
Oh.
For us to meet out of 500 people, well, for us to meet from a girl from South Carolina, a girl and a guy from Maryland, to put us together, and then to even meet out of that all those 500 people at the conference, like
Hmm.
God has a hand in it, and kind of the rest was history, as you say. But
Oh.
um, it was just, yeah, it was just a matter of months, honestly. We Like I said, we both had lots of different relationships. And so when we found each other, we recognized what he had found and how rare that
Oh.
was. And so we met in October, and we got married the next June. Now that doesn't have to always happen so fast, but for us, the long distance thing, it just felt right for me to, to move up to Maryland, and, we got married, and it was just, we knew that God had brought us together.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love, this is my favorite part. I love hearing that and seeing that.
I
And
know.
oh, it's so wonderful. Well, hopefully your second marriage is a lot better than your first. How is it better?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It feels totally different, Jen, than my first. I mean, it is like, I thought, like I said, when I was married, I was young, my first marriage, but I thought I had a good marriage. But looking back, now that I have this to compare it to, it is so night and day different. And I think number one, trust. I mean, that is what relationships are built on, right? Is trust. And if you don't have that foundation, and I was, I was so ignorant, naive, blind, whatever. And my first husband did he was a master manipulator to be able to, make everything feel like it was fine. But if you don't have trust, you can't have a relationship. And that's what I've learned. And with Ben, he's honest. He is the most patient man I have ever met. And the communication is there. You know what I'm saying? From not just on my end, but on his end too. It's got to be from both of us, because obviously our marriage is not perfect. We have a wonderful life together, but no marriage is perfect. I'm, far from perfect, but we're working together. We have the same goals, and we're both pulling together to accomplish that. And that is the biggest difference, right? Because my first marriage, I was the only one pulling.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do it alone. As hard as I was trying to drag him along and help him to change, I couldn't make him change.
Mm-hmm.
He had to do that for himself. And so this time we're both working together with a common goal in mind. And it's a beautiful thing. It's awesome. It's so different.
Oh,
This time around
wow.
is so
I
different.
love it. It's so wonderful to hear and see. And oh, I love it. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
Okay. So one
you.
last question. If you could
Yeah.
go back and give yourself like a word of advice on the day you were divorced, that's a hard day. I know
Yeah.
that. And I know you know that. That's a hard day. And if you could give yourself advice that day, what would it be?
Well, the hope. I mean, I would go back to hang in there. This is this is the lowest. This is your lowest point, and everything else is going to start going up. Like, now
Right.
that you've gotten this finalized, you are going to be starting. It might be a slow incline, but you are going to start climbing back out of this hole. And to also tell myself that this everything that you're going through now is going to make you a stronger, better version of yourself. Like, you don't feel it now, and you don't get that. But when you can look back and see this bigger picture, you're going to realize that everything that you went through is going to help you in so many ways, to be a better wife the next time around, to be a better mom, to be a better friend, daughter, sister, whatever it is. It's going to help you. It's going to give you this different perspective that you never would have had, not going through it.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. I couldn't agree more. And I am so grateful that you came on here with me today and shared your
Oh, you're
story. It's
welcome. You're
so
welcome.
wonderful and inspiring. And I love seeing this now. I knew you many years ago when you were going through the thick of it. And we talked then about how hard it was, and those were the tough days. And to see you now living this beautiful, happy life, having a happy, fulfilling marriage, it's just so awesome. I couldn't be happier for you.
Thank
So
you. Well, and one of the biggest things, Jen, too, for me was having that support system,
Mm-hmm.
going through the separation, the divorce, and after the divorce. I feel like that, and I didn't have family right there.
Mm-hmm.
My closest, my parents were actually out of the country when I was
Mm-hmm.
going through it. And my closest, I have a lot of siblings, but my closest one, they were all states away. Texas was the
Yeah.
closest one. And I was so blessed to have this amazing, I mean, God, it was God given, honestly, to have you
Mm-hmm.
and a number of other amazing women in my life at that point. And you really helped pull me through because you would remind me to hold on to the hope, right? And you would
Mm-hmm.
remind me, and and I still think about it today, that one day it will feel like a nightmare. It will all
Mm-hmm.
feel like a bad dream,
Mm-hmm.
as when you go through it. And honestly, all these years, 10 years later, it does. But to find that support system, whoever it is, to help you through it, family, friends, and to reach out to them, and to not feel like you cannot ask for help, because it is a tough time, and you need that support system to help you, to remind you of that hope, to get you through it. So I just
Oh,
really, I thank you for all that you did to help me. You did
of
so much
course.
to
Of
share your
course.
experiences with me and to pull me through. And I thank you for that.
Oh, of course, friend. Honestly, it's such a labor of love to like this with you, to go to recount all of my experiences and to be able to help any other woman get through it. It feels like it wasn't just for me. It feels like all that I went through and all that you've gone through, it can help so
Right.
many other women. We have walked that lonely road and we've come out on the other side happier, better off,
Better.
and a much more fulfilling marriage and better life. And I think that what we can share is that hope, like you said, that helps you get through. So thank you for sharing
You're
that. So I'm
welcome.
so grateful for your willingness to share your
You're
story.
welcome.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Sure. If you enjoyed what you have heard here today, please share it with your friends and anyone who might need some love and support. I would be so grateful if you would subscribe, rate, and review my show on your favorite podcast player. Thanks for listening. Bye, y'all. Are you struggling with the trials of divorce? There is a path to find joy in your journey. I would love to help you. Go to jenzingmark.com to get all the info. There you'll find a free download to help you start thinking happier thoughts today. And you can sign up to receive my weekly newsletter. If you like what you've heard here and want to dive deeper into this work, sign up for a free mini session with me. This is just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. There is so much more. I would love to work with you and be your life coach.